Namaste. Good evening to all of you. I, the host for today, Shija Menon from Vivek Vidyalaya and Junior College, would like to extend a hearty welcome to all of you to this launching ceremony of CIRDI, that is Center for Individual Resource Development International. It is said, prayer is the exercise of drawing on the grace of God. So before we begin with the maiden session of CIRDI, let's pray to Lord Almighty and seek blessings.
Shubham karoti kalyanam Arogyam dhana sampada Shatru buddhi vinashaya Deepajyoti namostute.
Thank you all for joining us in prayer. This beautiful mantra or prayer is a salutation to the lighting of the diya at the auspicious evening time, which brings health and prosperity and abundance. Deepam or diya also symbolizes knowledge, which drives away the darkness of ignorance. With that positive vibes, that positive energy and aura, let's move ahead with the program. Center for Individual Resource Development International is the brainchild of our president, Dr. Suresh Nair. Dr. Nair, an educationist, is presently the principal of Vivek Vidyalaya and Junior College and has served this institution for more than 32 years. Among many other prestigious awards that he received, he is also a state awardee and has received the award from the government of Maharashtra for his humongous contribution to the field of education. So may I now request our president, Dr. Suresh Nair, to give the welcome address.
Thank you, Ms. Shita Menon, respected dignitaries and well wishers present over here. A very good evening to all of you. Happy World Teachers' Day to all. 5th September is celebrated as Teachers' Day in India, thanking Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan for the respect he has earned for all of us. And today, we celebrate it with the world. For me, 5th September to 5th October is an entire month dedicated to celebrate us as a community and realize our responsibility, as we are the chosen ones for the betterment of the society. As an educator for over 3 decades, I have lived the journey learning and trying to make a suitable contribution towards the cause. I hope I have been able to do so. I feel proud and happy that I have so many of you today who are here to acknowledge me and encourage me and Deepa ma'am to further work towards our dream. Today is a very special day for us to welcome you all and introduce you to CIRDI, that is the Center for Individual Resource Development International. This is a center for all like-minded educators who believe that they are learners and contributors. This learning is developing resources and contributors towards building resources. We both understand that the journey is going to be challenging, yet we are intrigued by the idea of what it can become with all of us coming together and creating a pool of resources for each other to continue as able educators throughout our lives. I think that is our source of energy and a meaning to our existence. When Deepa ma'am and I were talking about it, many thoughts crossed our minds. We actually realized that we were only concentrating on what we have and what we can give. But gradually it dawned on us of asking ourselves, what are we creating and growing as? We want to grow as better individuals, better learners, better collaborators, and be the medium for like-minded people to exchange and evolve for self and others. I appeal all of you to be with us, join us, and help us make this possible. To being with as new students of this initiative, we approached great scholars to be our mentors, be our advisory panel members. I am blessed to introduce them to all of you. The advisory panel consists of Mrs. Vijayshila Sardesai, former chairperson, Maharashtra State Board of Secondary and Higher Secondary Education, Pune; Dr. A.P. Jayaraman, former senior nuclear scientist, BARC, and the chairman of National Center for Science Communicators; Dr. Tushar Guha, the founder chairman of Nityanjali Group and the chairman of Open Forum for Principals, India; Professor S. Shivadas, Chief Editor, Labour India Publications, Kerala; Professor Dr. Mark Nowacki, Professor at Singapore Management University and founder, Logic Mills; and Dr. Narayan A.B. Iyer, CEO of Indian Development Foundation. On behalf of SIRDI, I would like to express our thankfulness to them for their consent to be the panel members. Today, on this inaugural day, honorable guests of the day, Dr. A.P. Jayaraman, Senior Nuclear Scientist, BARC, and Mrs. Monica Naithani, Head Times NIE, the Times of India, are present to make this possible. Launching ceremony of SIRDI is indeed an occasion of joy, where we have come together to celebrate this auspicious launching ceremony. Today, we have become victims of the criticism and the expectations that have influenced our performance. Yes, the performance that today lacks the impact and influence we need to have over our students. With this as our base, our vision is to be the center of possibilities for educational, corporate, and social organizations in bringing sustainable development towards economic, literacy, inclusion, and individual aspirations. We are going to be a center of possibilities that will keep the teachers evolve and evolve organically to foresee the future and prepare our students accordingly. We are launching our website sirdi.in and also introducing today our bi-monthly newsletter called SIRDI News. SIRDI membership is open to all the principals, teachers, and educators in general. I thus appeal my community of educators to come forward and join the SIRDI community to share and celebrate our success and spread happiness to stand as one and the best solution for coming generations. So join the movement by setting an example and show the world with us on the Sindabad voyage, full of excitement, anxiety, surprises, challenges, all culminating into a journey, discovery, and long desired contentment. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra.
Thank you, sir, for welcoming the guest and educating us about the objective of CIRDI, that is SIRDI. And once again, let me have the privilege of welcoming each one of you to the launching ceremony of SIRDI. We also have with us two eminent speakers, Dr. A.P. Jayaraman sir and Mrs. Monica Naithani madam, who will be sharing their thoughts on education yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Let me give a brief introduction about SIRDI. Center for Individual Resource Development International is a platform where teachers and educators are maneuvered to excel and mentor the student community through local and international mentorship. SIRDI offers opportunity to experiment ideas, innovations, and collaboration to achieve performance and continuous professional excellence. I guess this is what new education policy is also all about. SIRDI is where confluence of like-minded individuals share and imbibe knowledge, experience through interaction, deliberation, and international exposure. SIRDI has an efficient board of trustees, advisory panel, and prime members all across India and abroad. The proposed activities. So let me just give an overview of the proposed activities of SIRDI, which is to follow a distinctive community of educators, especially teachers, be the solution for every challenge and convert it into opportunity, be it learning, assessment, opportunity, collaboration, research, and inclusion. CIRDI is also a channel to explore professional exposure and upgradation. It's a medium to learn, experiment, and exchange local and global perspectives. And now that we are all aware of what CIRDI is all about, let me introduce you all to our first speaker, a renowned personality and a familiar face in matters related to pedagogy and education, Dr. A.P. Jayaraman. Friends, frankly speaking, when I was going through the profile of Jayaraman sir, I could draw many similarities between Jayaraman sir and our former and late president, Dr. APJ Kalam. Set aside the initials, both of the initials starts with AP. That is not a coincidence. Well, so let me continue with my introduction. Dr. Jayaraman is a former nuclear scientist, retired from BARC after 40 years of service, and also a trustee of IDF, that is Indian Development Foundation. He is the chairman of the National Center Science Communicators and the president of STEAM Academy. A very interactive figure who has reached out to over 100 schools and colleges, interacted with 7,000 teachers, and addressed over 50,000 students. Now, I think you can also identify our Jayaraman sir with our former president. Yes, if I do, I think you all will agree with me. Well, winner of several prestigious awards, he has authored 20 science books and over 3,000 science articles. His latest book is We Are 118, an autobiography of the chemical elements. Well, I'm just eagerly waiting for this book, Jayaraman sir. After all, it would be interesting to listen to the chemical elements talking. Well, I think we should all be eagerly waiting to lay our hands on this book. It will definitely make for an interesting read. So, Jayaraman sir, we are all eagerly waiting to hear from you. This virtual platform is all yours.
Thank you, Shrija Menon, for those very nice, it's always pleasant to hear nice words from friends. I'm very happy to be with you, with this intellectual community, President Dr. Suresh Nair, and I find a number of my distinguished colleagues, Dr. Mark Nowaki, saw him, Dr. J.P. Kutyal, Dr. Lata, and I found a number of my friends over here. That makes it very, very interesting to be with you. Shrija, I have 20 minutes.
Yes, sir, you can go on.
20 minutes, yes. The time is measured and I have 20 minutes and I will start sharing the slide. Yes. Dr. Suresh Nair told me that I should speak on education yesterday. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Is my slide visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, Dr. Suresh, we on education yesterday. I was wondering why he chose this topic. He knows very well that I'm a fossilized creature, so yesterday can be described very well by fossilized creatures, that I'm gone. The arrow of time moves so surprisingly, acceleratingly, that today fleets, is a fleeting moment, a transient condition. And tomorrow, that's a prediction and a possibility, or a forecast, or a foresight, which scientists often engage to. Shrija Menon mentioned about an accidental collocations of the two letters of the alphabet, APJ, APJ. It was largely accidental, partly incidental, and partly deterministic and deterministic. Yes, I had the privilege of working with him at very close quarters and could understand glimpses of his personality during short interactions we had for a long professional life. So I come to this, my topic. I have 20 minutes. So assuming that I speak at the speed of about 100 words, I will have 20 into 100, so about 2000 words I should be. able to speak to you. Let me ask you the first question, which every teacher, as a teacher, we ask questions, whether we have answers or not. We don't mind, but we ask questions. I ask the question, what is the greatest equation which you have learned in your classroom, either in the high school or in the college or in the postgraduate or research center? So if you scratch your head and refresh your memory, you will find a number of equations coming up. Most people will say, yes, elementary physics, F is equal to ma, great, Newton. Force is equal to mass into acceleration. We're very happy. We all know that F is equal to m. A little forward, as we move to the college and to the centers of higher learning, we know that E is equal to mc squared is a better equation. E is energy, m is mass, and c is the velocity of light squared. Good. So we know F is ma, we know E is equal to mc squared. But those of us who love the volatility, the ambiguity, and also the uncertainty, we will go into higher complex equations like that of Stephen Hawking, where entropy S is equal to pi a kc cubed by 2 hg. That's the last equation which Stephen Hawking wanted to be written on his gravestone, and that you can find when you go to Westminster Abbey, where he is placed to rest. But to me, the equation is much, much simpler. My equation is E is equal to F. Education is future. E is education. F is future. So if you find that equation, that identity, this identity is identically equal to F, that is an alphabetical aberration, it doesn't matter. You are what you will be because of your E. Your future is deterministic. And that is decided, your future is decided by your education. What's your input and what's your output. So that is a single critical variable in your life, which determines your prospects. So I start with that equation, E is equal to F. Getting back to history, the first teacher obviously should have been a woman. There has been no doubt about it. And if you see the cumulative teacherly evolution, it was the first woman. She was not only a huntress, she was a gatheress also. Most of us speak about hunter-gatherer societies, but it was a huntress and it was a gatheress who brought food home after hunting. This is particularly important because this is the transmission of knowledge which happened with women. So we always treat the symbol of our teachership. This is also more important because she knows and does things. It was Bertrand Russell, philosopher, who said, science enables you to do things and to know things. She knew and she did. This knowing and doing, like the two sides of a coin, that's what exactly knowledge transmission, knowledge transfer takes place. So, and over a period of time, there has been a cumulative teacherly evolution to which we have currently reached. So, to my mind, having spent a lot of time in science, or what you would say, the nonsense of science, I always think there are only two ways of doing things in life: a scientific way of doing things and an unscientific way of doing things. Either you can do things very, very, very well in a scientific way, or in an unscientific way. That doesn't mean that scientific way is a permanent way, it's an evolving way. So we all start with the zero science, or I would say negative science, anti-science. That's what I call as an anti-scientific teacher. An anti-scientific teacher, once you taught your steps through your professional life, will say, let me be a little less anti-scientific. When you become a little less anti-scientific, you become unscientific. Okay, not very scientific, but unscientific. Then you take the next step forward and say, I don't care for science, nor do I bother much about it. Let me be as scientific, agnostic. I don't bother much about it, but you are making steps towards that. Then there soon you will find out that there is a challenge. If I do not absorb and assimilate and internalize science to the extent I am not able to proceed in my profession, and you become a challenged teacher. And when there is a challenge staring straight in your face, you will become a debutant scientific teacher. Debutant, that's really very great one. And once you enjoy once you have freedom and the enjoyment of being a Buddha, debutant, you will become a practicing scientific teacher. You try to do something, trying to do things. So practice. And if you practice more and more, you become an advanced practitioner and you become a scientific teacher. And the acme of perfection embraces you when you become an eclectic scientific teacher. That is the Abraham's curve, the Abraham Maslow's curve of self-actualization, where the teacher becomes an eclectic scientific teacher. But most of us labor under the erroneous illusion that we can teach everything to everybody else. Socrates made it absolutely clear, I cannot teach anybody anything. I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make you think. So teaching is not a transfer of know-how, is not a commodity to be transferred. Well, you can produce, you can distribute, you can exchange and consume. No, it's not so. It's to make you think. So thinking is the essential characteristic. So when I retired, I thought my thought process had come to an end. Immediately after retirement, I went to see a neurologist whether I have stopped thinking. He said, let's see, you undergo through some scientific tests. So I went through 2 scientific tests. One is called positron emission tomography. The other one is functional magnetic resonance imaging. That gives the alpha, beta, gamma waves of my brain. And after going through this procedure, the neurological testing procedure, he told me you are as thoughtful as you were when you were in service. So that gave me courage of conviction that I can continue to think even after retirement. And also one of the zero, the law of knowledge, that your ability to absorb knowledge does not stop when you are at 16. That's something which was relevant for me, so I did that. So now I go back to the oldest form where Thomas Macaulay started our old education. So when you look back historically and chronologically, you will find that Macaulay was trying to bring an education system in India where he wanted brown babus. You should be English in taste, you can be English in opinions and morals and intellect, but you can be an Indian in color. So this transformation, this transmutation of the native Indian into an Englishish model is what Macaulay tried. And it had its effects, both positive and negative, and we continue to do so. That's why Newton's first law of action. Everybody continues in state of rest or uniform motion unless and until you are forced to change. So that change I mentioned to force, it is force to get into your name. As we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. That is the continuum of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. John Dewey has mentioned. Now I look at 3 cases. This is Kalam, and Kakotka. These 3 people with whom I had the privilege of working had been educationists. But the common denominator among them they were all scientists. They were not only scientists, most of them were basically physicists. And physicists turned into engineers. Now, this intellectual evolution, the science capital they had, the engineering endowment they brought into their practical life, and the thought processes they evolved. Vision 2020 by Kalam, Technology Vision 2035 by Anil Kakotka, and Kasturi Rangan's new education policy. They were all products of a scientific process of thinking and action. So that's what I find most interesting. That's the evolutionary history of Indian education. I will just spend a little time with the Technology Vision 2035 and the concept of education as enunciated by Anil Kakotka in his Vision 2035. He said, schools will be redundant by 2035. Schools will be redundant by 2035. Today, schools are closed. Today, schools are shut. If you look at your grammar book, Wren and Martin, you will find there is a distinction between shutting the door and closing the door. Some people shut their doors. Some people close the doors. And there is a semantic vectorial differentiation between shutting the door and closing the door. We have shut the doors. We have not closed the doors during the last 2 COVID years. So schools have been shut, but not closed in the semantic sense of it. Now, the objective of Technology Vision 2035 on the education scenario was to have 100% literacy. When we say literacy, that is not the reducible minimum of reading, writing, but also there is a bit, in addition to that, functional literacy. And functional literacy involves your ability to deal with the instruments which you use at home, the mobile phone. So that's what we call literacy today. Of course, in the schools in 2035, you will not find any desks, you will not find any computers, nor will you find the cellulosic paper, because paper is one of the most expensive, energy intensive, material intensive stuff you can think of. You don't have large classrooms, there will be no grades, the syllabus and curriculum will undergo continuous changes, so there is nothing static about it. There will not be any textbooks, there will not be any examinations or tests or guidance. There will be no homework, and the students will be happy about it. And also, surprisingly, there will be no dropouts in 2035 in the education sector, and there will be no shadow industry of coaching classes. A large industry is there, which we call the industry, the coaching class, and there will also be no parent-teacher meetings. It's a continuous thing. This is what I was envisaged or envisioned by Dr. Anil Kakolkar in his vision 2035. But surprisingly, owing to the intervention of COVID-19, came far ahead, much before 2035. The reality came to us much earlier. But there is one sentence which Kakolkar mentioned in that document. I want to share it with my teacher colleagues. Teachers will remain central to education. The concept that teachers can be jettisoned as an unwanted baggage is unthinkable. Teachers will remain central to education, although their role would be fundamentally transformed to that of orienting the leader. Orientation will be what they do. Teachers would become navigators, pathfinders, pace setters, counselors, and confidants. You have to undergo a remarkable psychological and professional transformation to be a teacher of 2035, according to the Vision 2035. You can take one of the mirrors, either borosilicate glass with mercury at the back of it, and look at yourself whether your skills, your interests, your values, and your personality profile matches, gels well with what is needed. And there is always a problem. The problem is a significant difference between what is and what should be. You are what you are, but you are expected to be something different. If you can recognize this difference between two mental states of yours, part of the problem is solved. I quoted Bertrand Russell earlier, science enables us to know things and do things. And most of us teachers, we do things without knowing what we are doing. And we know many things which we don't do. This dichotomy between knowing and doing things without knowing and knowing things without doing, that is suicidal for the education to come. All of us may not be extremely happy teachers unless we have this amount of what you love, what pays well, because we live in a world of material world, and what you are good at. Matching of these parameters, that's what we look up to. The characteristics required for a teacher in the coming decade has been well differentiated, and talking about that to teachers is like taking coal to Newcastle. I will not do that. But the teachers know what they need, but the students will be very, very different. The transformation, the present generation students, if you deal with the international baccalaureate students today, I could see the difference between when I teach physics for IB students or when I do it for CBSE students or when we do it for Tompkins Mechanics School. Then you find the difference in the absorption style and pattern. The 21st century student brain is remarkably wired and is very different, and its neuroplasticity has been well documented. And in 50 years, they can affect the serious changes. They are extremely good at hypertext minds, and they have a depth and a breadth and a stretch of mind, depth of mind, a breadth of mind, and a stretch of mind. That three-dimensional visualization, the present generation is exceptionally great. You'll also find patterns of thinking. You can also find ADD, or they could be disengaged. So you are dealing with some material which is entirely different. Dr. Nair, Suresh Nair mentioned in the morning itself that the teaching and learning function is a reflective function. It's very reflective because you can get it reflected in this fashion. Now, if you go to the Sustainable Development Goals, no poverty, no hunger, and the fourth one, SDG, comes quality education. Now, education itself is a complex affair. Quality education is much more complex because we are not very clear as to what quality is. Quality can be conformance to standards, or quality can be standards, quality can be compromise, can be compatibility with the requirements. So conformity with the specifications, that's what your education system normally does. You have a graded education system and conformance to standards, well standardized programs, or to requirements in the job market. So you find a conflict in the paradigm of quality with respect to conformance to standards and requirements. Oh, I just reminded about one more maths teacher, epidemiologist, Susie Wiles. One teacher became world famous overnight because in a simple, non-quantitative method, she put this thing. And in the COVID times, all she said was, if you want to contain COVID, the fundamental aspect all you have to do is the number of active cases being produced per unit time should be reduced, then only the present healthcare system will take care. That concept became the rule of the thumb for all the policymakers, for all the medical professionals. It all came from a teacher. And this is the immortal curve, eternalized by an epidemiologist teacher. And any amount of praise and encomium paid to this will be not sufficient. Yes, one aspect of observing the external world will have to be very, very different. And that I come to Professor Aristotle, or physics professor. For centuries, the domain of physics was dominated by Professor Aristotle. What he said was the ultimate truth. And the power of observation, which modern empirical science demands, was very, very different from the natural philosophy of olden times. To be scientific today and to be scientific in the past, the scientificality of that concept has undergone an evolution. Aristotle said, and the first person to have made it world famous is Bertrand Russell's quote of this. Russell said that women have fewer teeth than men, or men have more teeth than men. This is a verifiable dental proposition according to you, and he had married twice, he had 2 wives. He should have respectfully asked them to open their mouths and do a numerical counting and settle the issue. Instead of that, he went into very tortuous arguments and stuck to his fundamental position, stuck to his principle that women have fewer teeth than men. So some of the scientific views of the olden times still stick to us. Another problem which the contemporary education system is having is a number and type of degrees we possess. Many of us have several letters to be added to, fixed to our letters, to our names. And these appellations which we add, we have to think in twice. If I have a PhD in history of science, if I am going to teach chemical engineering with that PhD and make my students feel that I have done work in chemical engineering, there is a problem. And today, the academic field, we have to see the relevance of the doctorates we hold with respect to the subjects we teach. This lack of correlation is a major problem in academic systems. So I just wanted to mention that this is happening in several centers of Ireland. Once earlier we thought that an inductive method, I think we have philosopher Mark Nowacki here, so I don't want to go into details of that. But many of the teachers were laboring under the illusion that induction is the right way of doing it. And then we believe if something goes on incrementally increasing, that is a pattern of behavior which is reproduced over a time. And a repetitive instinct of that, and an ability to extrapolate that this will happen in the future. And if you do that, and then one fine morning, you will find on Christmas, December 24th, the chicken lost its life. So that's one important thing. Well, I want to quickly. Shrija, I have 2 minutes. Shrija Menon?
Yes, sir. So carry on, sir.
No, tell me 4 minutes, 5 minutes? 5 minutes.
So you can conclude,
Sir,
sir.
you can take 5
I'm
minutes.
meeting into somebody else's respectable time.
No,
Well,
sir, no problem.
all of you are very much familiar with the mindsets of the people, and we are preparing children to have a modern mindset. It's not enough if you let them have one mindset. We should have a number of mindsets. So the first and foremost mindset which I would like to have is the Ramanic mindset or the Liss-Meitner mindset. So these are the people who can go into the depth of a subject. If anything is to be known about the wavelength of light, C.V. Raman knows all about it. If somebody wants to know how an atom splits, the uranium atom splits into barium and krypton and 3 neutrons coming out, Liss-Meitner knows all about it. So depth of knowledge of a domain that is exemplified by Raman and Meitner. So all students should aspire to have the depth of mind of Raman and Meitner. That should be followed by Marie Curie and this Mendeleev. Marie Curie knew not only the physics of it, which Raman knew, she knew the chemistry. So the depth of Raman is matched with the breadth of a subject. In the case of this philosopher, chemical philosopher, Mendeleev, Ivanovich, he said, when he knew 63 elements in all their diversity and complexity, he put them into a fine table. And today, 118 elements from hydrogen to organism have been beautifully fitted into a periodic table, and you can make predictions about their behavior, chemical behavior, physical behavior. All these things are possible thanks to the genetic relationship and the dialectical unity he could find about among the observations. So observation from the Aristotelian frame of thought to observation to the Mendeleevian frame of thought, that shows the evolution of science. Now we come back to the third stretch of mind. You have depth of mind, the breadth of mind. Now you need stretch of mind, your ability to imagine it. And that ability, imagination involves the difference between an object and the implications of an object. Einstein knew very well the velocity of light, the implications of that. So that is what we call the creativity aspect. That is the third mindset which we should all have. Creativity is generally said to be mini creativity, little creativity, then expert creativity. That's all hyperfine structures, yes. Then we have the fourth mindset, which all students should have in abundance. That is the respectful mindset, respect for others, respect for contrarian views, opposing views. That was shown in abundant measure, both by Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, who is known to all our teachers, and to Michael Sandel, who teaches philosophy of ethics at the University of Harvard. Beyond that, I come back to my colleague. We have APJ Kalam, and they had what is known as a concern for humanity in addition to all. So that concern for man and his fate must be the chief endeavor of all education. Ambassador Brundtland and Kalam, President Kalam, they had this in great measure. So I come to the last but one penultimate one. Be a good specialist. Don't become too much of a generalist. Try to become a versicolist. That's what students should be. And the teacherly horsepower, which makes this a reality, is a horse can walk. That's at about 5 kilometers per hour. You can make, a teacher can make a horse trot. That will be 10 kilometers per hour. The horse can also canter. That will be 15 kilometers per hour. That's the speed. But actually, a horse can be trained to gallop at 50 kilometers per hour. From 5 kilometers per hour, 50 kilometers per hour is the horsepower which a teacher can feed to the student generation. And I wish every teacher the capacity to provide this horsepower to the future generations of students. Thank you very much for your attention and for your time. Oh,
Thank you
let
very
me take
much, sir.
one more second. Yes, I wanted to show you this somewhat personal figure. You can find me the fossilized creature in the center. To my right, I find the next generation, whose IQ is 1 log cycle higher. To my right, that's me talking. To my left is my grandson. It's 2 log cycles IQ higher. When I speak to my next generation daughter, I feel scared about my intellectual inabilities. And when I speak to my grandson, I find things are very different from nuclear engineering to electrical engineering to electronic engineering. These three generations have undergone a tremendous change of intellectual transformation, which I find it personally difficult to digest, except by extreme effort on my part to understand the newer developments in science and technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So, as I was listening to your speech, I was reminded of my B.Ed days. The first lesson that I took in the classroom, the remark that I got was, come down to the level of the students. So, sir, I found that quality in you as a speaker who has a distinct ability to connect with the audience. You know how to come down to the level of the students. At the same time, you know how to rise up to educators, administrators, or scientists. No wonder, sir, you are a great storyteller who is passionate about science. Thank you very much, sir. And sir, we are not going to let you go easily. There is one more small task that you have ahead, and that is to inaugurate our Sirdi website. So may I request Jayaraman, sir, to inaugurate our Sirdi website?
It's my professional privilege to inaugurate the website.
Thank you, sir. Before I introduce our next speaker, let me welcome our advisory panel member, Professor Mark Nowacki from Singapore. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome, sir. And now let me invite our next speaker, Mrs. Monica Naithani, Deputy General Manager at the Times of India, a go-getter and a team leader. Mrs. Monica Naithani has been associated with the BCCL for almost 24 years. Currently, she is the business head of Times NI newspaper in education, Mumbai division. Being a people's person, she is here with us to interact. So let's hear from Monica, ma'am. Let the spotlight be on ma'am. Ma'am, this virtual platform is all yours.
So good evening to everyone present. First, I would like to thank Mr. Girish Dalal for inviting me to be a part of this event and also congratulate everyone involved in the Center for Individual Resource Development International and wish them all the best. My best regards to all the eminent people present here. I've been asked to speak about education, which is a topic very close to my heart, and I'd like to start my speech by talking about the differences and parallels between what education meant historically and what it means today. So education has existed as a form of knowledge transfer for several thousands of years, dating back to ancient civilizations. And formal education came soon after human beings understood communication as the important tool for education and has since led us to the world of organized civilization as we know it today. Different types of educational methods were used that were very different from schools as we know them today. However, the evolution of education has been fast-paced. Couple hundred years ago, spirituality was the only form of education passed down in India. I think Dr. Jayaraman sir also mentioned something to that effect in his presentation. While the British introduced Western education in India, it wasn't as popular as the traditional way of learning, which has been followed for thousands of years and was supported solely because of the science that came along with it. Education today has evolved to a great extent when compared to what it was during earlier times. However, the impact of the West on our education system is still ornately visible. If we say that the spread of Western education has only impacted us negatively, we will have as many supporters as we will have adversaries. This is because the rapid changes and increased complexity in today's world has brought about new challenges in the education system. This is because the new world demands so much more from a child than it did 30 years ago. Children today have to be increasingly aware of the world and be one with the zeitgeist much more than what they did before. This is simply because this world today is not just about individual civilizations with their separate cultures, but a globalized and diverse society as a whole. While dealing with these challenges, it is important to take into consideration the complexity of the educational system itself and a solution to issues that have yet to present themselves. Schools and educational institutes are going to face tremendous changes in the years to come. In the near future, the environment for education, which focuses on writing as we know it today, will focus on IT and the effective use of computers. Computers will no longer, of course, be as we know them today, but because they will undergo drastic transformation itself, owing to the tech sector's constant and consistent evolution. Technology is already becoming the new background for education. Although language will continue to be a very important part of education, shorter version of words and sentences we know today will no doubt be universally spread and accepted. I think the dictionary has also started including a lot of short forms. So emphasis will be placed on developing projects, presentations, and other methods to demonstrate the students' ability to apply the concepts in a practical way. These are changes we are already beginning to see today due to Western culture and its impact on us. And we are also increasingly aware that there will no longer be classes with children grouped on the basis of their age. Educators will realize the pressure exerted on certain students and conclude that each child is different, needs to progress according to their own ability. Considering the simplicity, convenience, and popularity of online courses, most institutes will seek and get authorization for online courses. For example, pupils in a particular country in Europe will be able to easily take lessons from Indian teachers through the internet and with an extremely fast-paced internet connection. The possibilities for the future are endless. And as educators, we must accept change. Change, when accepted, can lead to great innovations and progress, but when resisted, can often have disastrous and regressive consequences. The reason I say this is because while the system of education has changed several times over the years, the one thing that has remained constant is change. If we hadn't accepted educational change all those times when it came knocking on our doors, we would not even be here today. Dr. Jayaraman sir mentioned somewhere in his presentation, if we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob students of tomorrow, which is very true, I would say, as we have to move with the times. And so I believe that while education will evolve once again, as it has in the past, the way to progress is not to fear it, but to prepare for it and make sure that the future generations can walk as one with this ever-changing world, if not one step ahead. Also, one slide said that by 2035, schools would be redundant, and that may be true. And that's scary for all of us, I'm sure. Anyway, I hope that I've been able to put my knowledge of the education system in the right perspective. And while we all know most of what I have spoken, when we talk and discuss like this, I think it opens a lot of doors in our minds to look at the whole education system objectively. So thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this event. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Monica, ma'am. Thank you for those insights. Yes, indeed, we have come a long way in the field of education, yet more remains to be done. So the onus is on all of us. So let's accept the challenge and move ahead.
Yes.
Just to inform all of you that we have also with us some of the contributors of our newsletter. So we welcome all of them. And now may I request Naithani madam to inaugurate the newsletter, Sirdi newsletter.
Thank you, ma'am. It's a privilege.
Welcome, ma'am.
Congratulations on this. Congratulations. Hearty
Thank
congratulations.
you. It's a bi-monthly newsletter. I request all the educators to share the articles related to education for the benefit of all. So it's a request to all of you to share your thoughts, your opinions, your views regarding education so that we can all share the information and rectify or maybe progress towards a new beginning. So I request all of you to please contribute your thoughts on education. That's the main aim of Sirdi newsletter. Moving on to our next speaker, Mrs. Vijay Sheila Sardesai. Really unfortunate that we couldn't have her amongst us, but definitely we have her message with us. I'll just read out her message, a part of it, and I quote, I'm glad to be associated with this innovative, futuristic endeavor and would look forward to many experiments and success stories. I'm sure Sirdi would provide valuable learning resource to all working in the field of education. Vijay Sheila ma'am has wished each one of us the very best. It's indeed our misfortune that we missed her. Anyway, thank you, ma'am, and wish you too all the best. And now, may I invite the Secretary of Sirdi, Mrs. Deepa Desai, to share her vision and also to propose a vote of thanks. As mentioned earlier, Sirdi is the brainchild of Deepa ma'am and Dr. Suresh Nair. So, Deepa ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Greetings on the occasion of World Teachers' Day. We all know, and rightly said by Dr. Jayaraman too, that a teacher can influence the life of her students in a big way, and thus plays a very important role in nation building. A line I had read some time back and is very close to my heart. I quote, "Dreams do come true for those who believe in them," unquote. Thank you, Suresh sir, for reflecting back briefly on our dream. Yes, a casual discussion has led to this dream, Sirdi. We both feel blessed to have such eminent advisory panel members to help us take this forward. Since the time we have initiated this, we once again feel excited, refreshed, and relevant. I see an opportunity to reconnect with my fellow educators and come together to reinvent ourselves. Sirdi is going to be that platform, an engagement and an enthusiasm that we all look forward to. Every individual is resourceful. Every individual needs resources. We all are at that stage when the realization is a collaborative and inclusive journey towards a happy and progressive lifestyle. With this intention, our efforts are going to bring the resources together. This coming together is a selfless desire to learn more. I believe, and Sirdi affirms, that we must be learners, the potential to feel the existence, to hone the skills, and to blossom. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and our revived NEP 2020 have, of course, influenced us in a great way and has helped us to work towards our dream and make a humble contribution towards the sustainable development goals, primarily focusing on education and poverty. Through knowledge, honing 21st century skills, inspiring, enterprising through self-belief, exposure, and relevant skill sets, which we as educators then can pass it on to our students. We also plan to create opportunities for retired professionals to learn and earn through Sirdi. Every enlightened individual is then automatically going to be the reserve and the resource. To make it more interesting and universal, we are fortunate to receive support from global educators, and we plan to share it with all of you through Sirdi. A shift from regular is only possible if we step out and peek into the new outlook, new perspectives, new innovations, and new people. Hence, we also welcome other educators to be a part of Sirdi. Sirdi is going to explore metacognition of views, ideas, creativity, experimentation, will encourage collaboration, respect, inclusivity, and develop global community towards a global exchange and togetherness. It is rightly said, when the right time comes, every kick becomes a goal. So let's come forward, explore, and commit to be the change we all wish to be. Having said this, let me share with you some good and great news. Our forthcoming events for this month, that is the month of October, on the 18th and 19th, in association with IRDI Studio and Yashashwini Foundation of Mrs. Renuka Deshmukh, we invite you all to be the part of the 2-day virtual conference. The details of the conference will be reflected on our website very soon, so that you can register and be a part of the great learning from and beyond in India. On 26th October, we invite you for a special session on storytelling as a tool of teaching. As we come to the concluding part of today's event, on behalf of Team Sirdi, I would like to thank all those who have made today's launch possible. I would like to express my gratitude to our esteemed guests for the day, our speakers, Dr. Jayaraman Sir and Mrs. Monica Naithani Ma'am. Thank you for taking some time off from your very busy schedule and enlightening us with your valuable insight. I also thank Mrs. Sardesai Ma'am for sending her message and best wishes, as she could not be physically present due to a family emergency. Her article, her message will be published in our next newsletter. Ma'am, we have really missed you in our launch. Thank you once again, our distinguished guests, for your pearls of wisdom, which has taught us all that reflecting on our past experiences, maintaining and keeping the ethos, the culture, improvising on what needs to be improvised, and practicing the present, evolving, innovating, will surely help us all in our path towards a successful future. I extend my gratitude to Dr. Suresh Nair Sir, Mrs. Bindu Nair, and Ms. Pavitra Desai for making Sirdi a reality. I express my sincere gratitude to our advisory panel, Mrs. Vijayshila Sardesai, Dr. Narayan A.B. Iyer, Dr. A.P. Jayaraman, Professor S. Sivadas, Professor Dr. Mark Nowacki, and Dr. Tushar Guha. Thank you, ma'am and sirs, for being a guiding force and showering your blessings on us. Thank you, Ms. Shraddha Peje and Mr. Amit Bhandari for working relentlessly for the beautiful website. For any event to be a success, there is always a team behind the curtains. I take this opportunity to thank our team for working hard for the last 15 days to make this launch a grand success. Mr. Inderjeet Singh Ratan, the young man to help us with today's proceedings and creatives. Ms. Sheeja Menon for helping us execute the event seamlessly as our Master of Ceremonies. Our family members whose constant encouragement and support has brought us where we are. And last but not the least, a big thank you to you all who have gathered today here, who are present with us, and to also those who could not be present here physically but are with us in spirit. Thank you to our well-wishers for their help. And finally, thank you one and all. I would, friends, like to make a humble request to you all. Do join us in our endeavor, a journey towards a brighter tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa ma'am. Thank you all for gracing this special occasion with your presence. Just a small request to all of you. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. That's all. Thank you.